Hey everybody, how's it going? Since I did that CBC News video, there's been quite a bit of talk on the difference between unauthorized repair and authorized repair, and there's been a good amount of debate back and forth about quality, standards, etc. So I found it interesting when I found this post in one of my favorite places on the internet, a place that I'm proud and happy to call home, r/Apple on Reddit. That's reddit.com/r/Apple. It's a post by an individual who claims to work for a company called CSAT Solutions. We don't have independent verification of this, but it's still an interesting case. The title of the post is, "Do you know what happens to your MacBook when you send it in for repair?" And he goes on to explain what's going on at the company. He says that there's no schedule. You show up for work at 7 and you could be there over 12 hours. When they're hiring, they say the time or the schedule is 7 a.m. to finish. They have people that they've hired. Essentially, all they prove is that they're able to speak English, and bam, you're hired and you're working on $2,000 machines. No qualifications required. And he talks about the working conditions and bonuses, such as where technicians who've been there for 10 years don't get bonuses, but new people, since their turnover rate's been really high, get high bonuses. He talks about the air quality and says that there's a lot of dust there and that they get in trouble for having a dusty workstation, even though the air quality there is awful. He talks about the quality that you get, where he says in the end, you'll get a refurbished motherboard that will most likely fail again because the company that repairs them does a shitty job. Sometimes the new board we're going to use looks worse than the one that you sent your unit in with. I have received boards with corrosion and we are told to use them and cannot change it unless it fails for something. He says every aspect of the company is a joke. Their shop floor system is always crashing and they expect us to finish the work. We get units in the morning and we're supposed to ship them out at night. And he gives a good amount of answers to a bunch of people's questions. When he talks about the boards they're forced to use, this does kind of jive with my experience in this video, The Horrible Truth About Apple's Repeated Engineering Failures. I show you how on one of the machines, rather than resolder the chip onto the board, they put this little piece of rubber there that kind of smashes the chip back onto the board. And this is the kind of quality I'd expect from a company that treats their employees the way CSAT does. So if you take a look here on Glassdoor and other sites similar to Glassdoor, you'll see the employee reviews here of the company, a sweatshop for U.S. citizens, $9 to $14 an hour. You'll see that most of the reviews are talking about low morale, terrible place to work, low pay, no opportunity to move forward, and so on and so forth. Now, there are a couple of reasons that this could be happening. This could be one company's fault, several companies' fault, or you never know. So there's an old video that I did called How the Unauthorized Repair Center is Forced to Screw the Consumer. And what I talked about in this video were my experiences in looking to become an authorized repair center. When I was looking into becoming an authorized repair center for Lenovo products, I ran into an interesting roadblock whereby in order to become an authorized repair center, you have to sell a certain amount of their products every month, and that amount of their products is ridiculously high. So you wind up having to convince people to buy a new one rather than fix their current one, because if you want to remain authorized, you need to sell that $20,000 to $60,000 a month of new product. The other thing I talk about is how you're forced to work within a certain labor rate, which is set by the company. Now, with Lenovo, it was somewhere between $25 to $75, depending on the job. And when I remember reading through the list, most of the jobs were going to be $25 jobs. Now, typically, you need to be billing somewhere between 2 to 4 times what it is you're paying your employees in order to pay insurance, taxes, rent, advertising, and for all the tools, all the ancillary things required to do a job. So what you're going to find is that if the labor rates are that low, like $25, you don't have a lot of money left over for employee pay. And what I find, not just with Lenovo, not just with Apple, with most companies, is that when it comes to warranty work, they really do try to keep labor rates as low as possible, because this is not new money for them. This is, we already sold a product, something went wrong with it that we didn't expect to go wrong, and now we have to fix it. So it's not a new service. It's essentially a cost for them that out of pocket. So they are looking to spend the least amount possible. Now, I don't know exactly what the rates are for Apple, but I do know for most other companies, warranty repair labor rates are very low. And if that's the case, then CSAT does not have a lot of money to work with and is going to be in the situation where they have to balance the really low labor rate from Apple with the expectation of their customers that the job be done properly. And this could be a very crappy place for CSAT to be. So for all we know, CSAT may be a decent company that's doing their best to survive given the low labor rates and the low pay offered by Apple. Or it could be the other way around. Apple could be paying CSAT a good amount of money, and CSAT could simply be pocketing it and treating their employees like garbage. We don't have enough information to know, and this is the type of thing that where we really need to hear not just from a low-level employee at CSAT, but also from upper management to get an idea of what is going on here. Now, there were also cases several years back where this company had a different name. They actually changed their name. They had worker protests over wage cuts. There were people working there who apparently were getting paid a couple of dollars per laptop repair. So it wasn't like $40 for a laptop repair, $25 or $80. You were getting paid a few bucks for each machine that you fix, which is pathetic and kind of a joke. And they wound up changing their name from CTS to CSAT to try and change their reputation a little bit. Now, in my experience, when it comes to these depot types of companies, from what I've heard from employees, they are often sweatshops for U.S. citizens. But at the same time, you have to consider that a lot of the work that's being done here is work that other people don't want to do. So I'm kind of on the fence as to how I feel about this. A lot of the work being done, replace motherboard, replace screen over and over and over again for 8 to 10 hours a day. If you're doing the low-level work, that's work that customers don't want to pay much for, that that you can't really have a high labor rate for, that is boring. But at the same time, somebody has to do it. Now, one of the main points I really want to drive home here is that there is this idea that when you go to authorized repair, everything's being done in this beautiful clean room by highly trained individuals. Yet when you read this post, he makes it obvious that they will hire virtually anybody off the street so long as you can read or write in English, and the next day you're fixing and troubleshooting $2,000 machines. When you look through here, you'll notice that the average pay for this facility is this authorized facility is paying people less money than a lot of unauthorized repair facilities are paying their own employees. The barrier to entry here and the amount of training you get at this authorized facility appears to be actually lower than the amount of training you would get at an unauthorized repair facility if you went to work for somebody like me or Jessa and you worked with us and we trained you in how to do your job. So there's this idea that, it's going to be this beautiful clean room environment when there's layers of dust everywhere. And, as you've seen, my shop is not the most beautiful thing in the world. It's a little dump of a room, but I clean the place every single day. We've got 3 of these things here. We have, it's a pretty decent air purifier. We've got at least 3 of those. Anybody who does any soldering work is doing so in front of a Hacko FA430 fume extractor just to keep any of the junk from soldering and flux fumes out of the air. And we do have 3 of those really powerful air purifiers in a space that's about 750 square feet because I really care about the air quality for the employees who are spending 8 hours a day here. I have air conditioning so that it's actually cool, so that you're not working in a place where you're sweating all the time. And there's a reason for this. It's because we want people to do good work, and we want people to do the type of work that's going to make customers happy. We actually have somebody who, before we ship out any machine, actually goes through it with a lens cleaner, wipes the whole thing down with a microfiber cloth to actually clean the machine so that it's cleaner going out than it was coming in, not surrounded in dirt. And there is this image projected that when you go to an authorized facility, when you deal with a warranty facility, that you are dealing with this high level of quality that you won't find anywhere else. But there is the actual reality of the situation. When you place so many barriers to entry to becoming authorized, when you place these barriers to entry where, let's say to sell products on Amazon, you need to be selling millions of dollars worth a year. Or if you want to be an authorized repair facility, you need to sell $20,000 to $60,000 per month of new products in addition to doing repairs, you get a very small number of companies that are going to jump through these hoops. And when you have a small amount of companies jumping through the hoops, that means you have less companies, which means less competition. Now, when there's less competition and less people placing bids, that means that the people who actually make it to the end, the few individuals that actually survive, are going to be able to do whatever they want. They will be able to have a factory or repair facility that is unclean. They will be able to have untrained staff. They'll be able to have terrible working conditions like 7 a.m. to finish for an employee who could be working for 12 hours, and you'll be able to have the type of unskilled, awful ideas for warranty repair where rather than properly resoldering a chip the way I would, they put a piece of shoe rubber on it and call that fixed under an extended warranty program. And this is the kind of thing I would like to know more about. I'd love to hear from individuals who work for CSAT. I'd love to hear from individuals who work in management at CSAT. I will 110% retain your confidentiality. Your information will not be shared. I'd like to know some of the numbers here so that we could really get an idea of what's going on. Is this a case of Apple providing such low labor rates that the only companies that can survive are the companies that treat their employees like trash and have terribly unclean facilities and untrained staff? Or is this a case of just corruption due to the fact that so few people are actually able to make it to Apple standards that the few that end up there wind up just becoming relaxed due to the fact that there's no competition? I want to pop this bubble that the authorized warranty service facilities are of the highest quality with the highest educated individuals, when a teenager who's watched a few of my YouTube videos will likely be able to do a better job. Now, the last thing I want to point out here is there were some interesting comments on how it's impossible to have better worker conditions due to the inherent nature of capitalism. Source goods for and labor as low as possible to maximize profit. Now, there are areas of capitalism that need serious criticism. For the ability to get a loan and have the collateral for that loan be the company that you haven't bought yet, then be able to put that debt and transfer it to the company that you're then going to destroy, like the Bain Capital Toys R Us stuff. You look at these laws and you look at those loopholes, and there's an issue there. But at the same time, there are also some benefits to capitalism, and there's one that I'd like to bring up here and encourage people who work near these businesses to take advantage of. So one of the things I said is a big part of how I maximize my profit is by paying people who do hard work good wages so that I can attract people who do a good job. They do good work for customers who then tell everyone they know they shouldn't go anyplace but here. Better, happier employees means more customers they make happy. That means more happy referrals for customers, and that means more money for me. So within a capitalist society and within a capitalist economy, if I get employees that actually do a good job, that know what they're talking about, that are happy and have some level of company pride, then they'll do good work. If they do good work, they'll refer more people, I'll have more business, and then I will make more money. So you can actually maximize your profit by treating people decently. One of the elements of capitalism that I've enjoyed, and one of my greedy elements of capitalism, has actually been increasing people's pay. So I used to have a supply company back in 2011, 2012, before it went kaput, and this supply company would sell screens and other types of parts, mostly laptop and iPhone screens, to surrounding businesses. This allowed me the unique opportunity to talk to a lot of other technicians that I typically would not have access to in scenarios where their boss wasn't there, so I could hear the honest truth. And sometimes I would talk to them, and I had a repair company at the time, and they would describe how awful working for the company was, and I'd say, like, what do you make? And they'd say $12 an hour. And I'd say, well, can you fix boards? They go, no. Can you do customer service? No. Can you replace the screen on a MacBook Air? No. And I'd say, okay, so there's not really much I can do here. But if somebody showed up and they said, can you fix boards? They'd say, yes. Can you deal with angry customers? And they say, yes, I can actually turn 1-star reviews into 5-star reviews. Can you replace MacBook Air screens just with the LCD cell? And they go, yes. And I would say, okay, so what are you making? And they'd say 12. And I'd say, okay, how about 20? How about 25? And that this was a way for my greed to increase the individual salary. So people would be making their boss $600 a day, but they'd only be getting paid $100 a day. So I would say, okay, I see you have the capability to probably make me $1,000 a day. Let me pay you $200 to $400 a day. And then they would quit their job and come over here. And it's a good balance, and it's a good way of checking people and checking the market and checking the bosses to ensure that they're paying people what they're worth. Because if you're paying somebody too low, then some jackass like me or Dale Doughton from The Gifted Boss, who also has somewhat this mentality, is going to come by and steal the employees. So if CSAT is not in New York City, but if CSAT were in New York City, I would be standing outside of that place every single day and waiting for employees to leave and, just walking up to them and just saying, hey, what are your abilities? What can you do? Do you want a better job? And if they did say, yes, I can solder. Yes, I can deal with customers. Yes, I can replace this screen without having to do the whole assembly. Yes, I have the ability to learn how to do this. I would happily hire people from these places. And the reason I'm mentioning this is if you are near a CSAT, if you're near a CSAT Solutions location and you are a repair shop that is looking for employees, what I would do is take advantage of that element of capitalism. I, go outside of there, sit there for the day with, right on the sidewalk with your little with a little folding table and a folding chair, have a little, have a clipboard or whatever there, have people give their information. And if you find people that are good at what they do, take them and pay them twice as much and get employees for your own store. Rather than having to show somebody the ropes from the ground up, rather than having to show somebody the ropes from nothing, you'll get somebody who actually knows something already, who already cut their teeth and learned and made a lot of the newbie mistakes that you want to avoid making on the cheapskate company's customers. So now you got the benefit of somebody who's kind of half trained, and they're going to appreciate the fact that they're working for somebody who is paying them more money. I don't think that companies like this are going to change from a slap on the wrist. If a bunch of people complain to Apple, then an Apple manager complains to CSAT and slaps them on the wrist, and then CSAT fires one manager, I don't think that's actually going to change anything. The only thing I think is going to change anything is if their primary source of income is directly threatened, or if their primary pool of labor is directly threatened. And one of the ways to threaten that pool, that pool of labor, is for other repair shops to start offering them better jobs. And I'm confident from reading the salaries from this location that if you have a half-decent repair shop and you have a lot of customers coming in, that you could easily pay better rates than what CSAT is paying. You could easily make more money from their employees than what CSAT is making. So I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on this whole situation. It is interesting to see that Apple is bringing elements of Foxconn directly from China to the United States here. And also, what if you are an individual who genuinely trusts first-party repair over third-party repair? What do you think of this situation? How do you feel about this situation? Is this the type of thing that you would want to bring up with Apple before you give them money for the next product? Or is this the type of thing where you don't really care? So long as they get it done, who cares if they're paying $9 an hour and got dusty, disgusting places for the untrained staff members to work on products? So that's just about it, and I'm kind of curious what all of your opinions are. I understand that there are some serious criticisms of unauthorized repair, such as, particularly when it comes to people buying the lowest quality eBay or Amazon junk iPhone screens and installing them and claiming that they're new. Those individuals that purposely buy the lowest quality parts and advertise them as new and OEM are some of the scum in our industry, and I'd like to see that get washed out over time as more people come into this industry and as more people become aware of the legitimate practices in this industry and more people become informed. But I'm just kind of rambling at this point. So I'd really like to hear what it is you all have to say. And that's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something.